So farming is one of the major economic activities in Kenya. It is the biggest, actually the second biggest contributor to our gross domestic product, because out of the gross domestic product of about 95.5 billion US dollars, farming contributed around 26% of our GDP. Gross domestic product is the total output from services, from goods sold in a country for 1 year. So if we calculate everything that we produce in this country, from the food we produce on our farms, from the work we do as teachers, as doctors, as engineers, everyone who produces something, either you deliver a service or some product, we put them together, we have what we call the gross domestic product. And therefore, when you are doing some farming, you are also contributing to the Kenya's economy through the GDP. Although GDP has been criticized in the past for a number of reasons, one of the reasons is that it is not a good measure of the economy, because there are some services which are not included in that GDP. For example, work done by women in our houses, that is domestic work. When your wife, your sister, or your mother does some work, cooks for you, when they take you children to school, when they run errands for the family, that piece of work is never included in the gross domestic product. So that is why we are saying that GDP is not a true measure of our economy. But all the same, no one has come up with a new formula. So some of you might be wondering which is the largest, the leading contributor to our economy. You will be surprised that it is the services industry. Things, for example, like teachers offering services, doctors offering services as doctors or treating people, nurses taking care of the sick, and many other services. That is the leading profile. Actually, this is the backbone of Kenyan economy right now. Previously, it was agriculture. Agriculture was the leading contributor to the economy of the country, but now things are changing, but still agriculture is number two. Agriculture is number two. So that is why I'm telling my friends out there and my viewers that we should try, if you have a piece of land at home, make sure it is being used properly. You are planting some crops, even if it's cash crops, but you have to plant crops which are doing well in your region, maybe to take to their cows and goats. So let us not take for granted what you know. It is better we share, especially when you know something. Like me, I do farming. I will be sharing tips with you to make sure that you are aware of the challenges we are facing. One of them I've said today is that when you are doing farming activities and you do not have someone on the ground, things can go wrong and no one will probably tell you. Like what is happening here, there is more weeds than crops. That is a challenge. Another challenge is probably stealing. People can come and steal your crops. That is why I told you already that we will be fencing this area to make sure it is secure and animals do not come to the farm. I'm fearing that once people harvest crops around my farm, some people will bring their livestock, their cows, their goats and sheep, and they might enter my farm because it looks very green with weeds for now. So that's a challenge we have. But there are also many other challenges, especially when you harvest. You find that brokers come and give you a very low price, which can also have an effect because the kind of income you can get when you are selling your product or produce through the brokers will be quite low than when you sell it directly to the final consumers. So from this point,
you pay the government.
Yes, from this point we have planted some trees. This is called the grass. For those who come from my community, we call it Emekaviri. So we have Emekaviri here from this section all the way to the far end. There is a line of these trees. This is what I hope to plant to the rest of the farm, around the entire farm, because I told you these are good for firewood, especially when I will be staying here. This is a rural area, so I will be using firewood. Yes, you just prune the branches and you have your firewood. So here we don't use gas. So there is the tree sort over here. We will show you details, and there is a line going up just to show that this is the boundary of this section of the farm, which I would use as my compound. And I have also planted some green fence here. It's called green fence or live fence. We have a live fence over here. It is also in the midst of weeds. Let me just remove the weeds. You will see the live fence I'm referring to. This is a common brand which we use at home to fence our farms because it has some thorns, so it is very hard for people to, and even animals, to cross when they are grown well. So we have a line here. This is a boundary in the midst of my farm to show the boundary between my homestead and the dairy farm. So this is so those who understand, this is called Ekenau. You know me, I don't fear using my vernacular language because that's a source of my identity. So this one I just went to neighbors' farms and borrowed from them. You know, they have some seeds which you pick. Once you pick them, you bring them. You don't just take them to the farm and start planting. You have to boil them. You put them in hot water because the outside section of the seeds, they are very hard. So they cannot start just germinating. You have to put them in hot water. But you don't boil them, you will kill them. You just boil water and put them inside for a few minutes. Then just pull them out and brand them the way we did here. So when we have time, I think my cameraman here will tomorrow try to just do what I've done here for this. There's a whole line here, all the way up there. So we are hoping that in the next 2 to 3 years, we will have a fence over here, just separating the farm from the homestead. Something just trying. There's no specific way of managing your farm. You do what you want with it, but you try to make sure it is beneficial. So now, maybe this is the final section we are talking about. Since this is a dry area, we are planning in future to construct a water tank over here, an underground water tank. I'm already thinking about it, but also for sale to my neighbors and people in this village. So it is a large village actually here. So we move and see some of the materials we have here for the water tank. This one I will be collecting rainwater. So I will build more houses here, maybe structures or hens, structures for a kitchen will be built around near that house over there. So this is where I will be harvesting rainwater from and then direct them to the underground water tank. Once I have the water, I will have a raised water tank, a plastic water tank like Kenyan tank. Water is a problem in this part of the country. This is Congasis or Kiambogo. I've already bought stones. You see this type of stones? These stones are used for making water tanks because they are hard and they are not porous. This one, this side, the black ones, these are underground water tanks. These ones, they are porous. If you use them to build a tank, I'm told that the water will spill out, it will leak. So we won't use this one, but we will be using these black stones, which are more durable. They are more, in fact, they are not porous, they are non-porous. And then we will also use a waterproof cement to make sure that the tank is well built and very strong. Then over here we have sand. Sand is a requirement for any construction, including building a house, building a water tank, We used the same sand. Actually, this is the sand we used to build the toilet and also to build the house there, over there. So this is what remained, but we will just buy more to make sure that we have enough, we have sufficient materials. When that time comes, I will update you on this channel on what we are trying to do to have. So our aim is really to have numerous streams of income. So basically, this is the pilot I was talking about. We decided that this section we will plant potatoes. These are called Irish potatoes because we have, I think, 2 types of potatoes. We have Irish potatoes and sweet potatoes. So these are Irish potatoes. I think they are called Irish because they must have originated from Ireland in the United Kingdom. So we planted a few potatoes here, a few plants of potatoes like this one, which is in the midst of weeds. And I had asked someone to come and do weeding over here, but it seems like they never did much. And someone came here to look for grass for their cows or goats, and just slashed my crops, which is so unfortunate. This one I can sue someone for what we call, what do we call it? When you get into someone's property without permission. Trespass. You can sue someone for trespass. But I'm not interested in that. For now, I'm explaining that. We have potatoes here as what we call, but I'm thinking that by the time I harvest this, I can have at least 2 bags, that is 90 kg bags of potatoes from just this small section of the farm. There is also another line over there across after this house. There is another line of potatoes. So this is just trying. We are new here, and we are doing farming as a hobby. We want to see how it goes. So, and also for the purpose of because this place is very cold, so you have to spray them so that they do not burn the leaves because of frost. So this is a very fertile place for planting potatoes. So this might be one of the crops which we will prioritize for the coming year. Maybe now that I have done just a small section, next year I will do more, maybe a quarter an acre or half an acre. Then we see how much we can make from that. Once we have finished with those experiments, now we will scale out and plant more potatoes. We plant more tomatoes. I think tomatoes can also do well, but we will do an experiment next time. And in future, I will be spending more and more time here on this farm to make sure that things are moving according to plan. So that is why we came today, to just check what is happening here, to be sure that our crops are doing well. The potatoes have already flowered. You can see the flowers. They are doing very well. And we are happy that the potatoes can be one of the crops we can grow on this farm. So in future, apart from growing on this small piece of land, we can also lease land from outside, from other farmers. We grow more crops because that is the only way we can do sustainable farming. That's the way we can do sustainable farming. And in future, once we establish ourselves well, we will make sure that we do a lot of mechanization or automation, so that some of the things which can be done by machines, we don't have to do them spending numerous hours on the farm. We just mechanize things and move on. So I think up to that point, we now move to the next section where we have planted trees as our final video before we move on to other things.